The sky above Varian burned with red and gold as the twin suns rose, casting long shadows over jagged mountains. Cale felt it instantly. The air was heavy, vibrating with a strange energy that made his skin tingle. Something dangerous was coming. Something he could not yet name. He had been sent to the palace of Lysera, the demon goddess feared across galaxies. Humans were considered fragile, powerless, a species that barely survived in the cosmic order. And yet here he was, a single human, walking toward a being whose reputation alone could destroy worlds. The palace appeared like a black crystal rising from the cliffside, its spires sharp as blades and glowing faintly under the sun's harsh light. Shadows moved across its surface, and Cale knew he was being watched by creatures whose loyalty to Lysera was absolute and deadly. He stepped forward into the grand hall. The air was thick with magic, and the floor shimmered like liquid night. At the center, Lysera stood, taller than any human, her form both terrifying and beautiful. Her skin gleamed like dark stone, her violet eyes burning with a light that could pierce the soul. Every step she took seemed to bend reality itself. Cale swallowed hard. Fear had been drilled out of him long ago, but even he felt the weight of her presence. "I am Cale of Earth," he said, his voice steady. "I come to fulfill your promise of 3 wishes." Lysera's lips curved into a faint, cruel smile. "3 wishes," she said, her voice like a storm rolling over mountains. "Do you understand what you ask? Many have tried, many have fallen. Many have begged for mercy, and none survived." Cale's gaze did not waver. "I understand. But I am not like the others," he said. She tilted her head, studying him. "We shall see." Her eyes narrowed. "Your first wish. Speak carefully. One mistake and death will be swift and final." Cale had thought about this moment for months. Every option had been weighed, every strategy considered. He knew he could not wish for power or wealth. Lysera's magic would crush it before it could take hold. But he had realized the truth. Power was meaningless if the goddess underestimated the human who held it. "I wish for your respect," Cale said. The hall fell silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Lysera's laughter cracked like lightning, sharp and dangerous. "Respect," she hissed. "You dare, you, a human, dare to demand my respect?" Cale met her gaze without flinching. "Yes," he said firmly. "Respect is earned, not given. I will prove my worth. But first, I ask for acknowledgement." A surge of energy exploded from her. Dark magic swirled around her, sharp as blades, ready to strike. Cale braced himself, but the energy twisted, recoiled, and burst into the air harmlessly. Lysera staggered back, her composure cracking for the first time. "You," she breathed, fury and shock in her voice. "You are not like the others." "How?" Cale's heart raced, but he did not move. "I am human," he said simply. "And humans survive when the impossible happens." The palace trembled. Lysera tried to summon destruction, bolts of black energy that could level mountains, but Cale moved with uncanny precision. He dodged effortlessly, not because of strength, but because he understood her patterns, her arrogance, her overconfidence. Every move she made, he anticipated. Outside, Lysera's guards froze. Her aura of invincibility wavered, and even the creatures that obeyed her without question felt the shift. Fear, subtle and unfamiliar, passed through their ranks. "You may have power," Cale said, his voice calm, "but you have never faced someone who refuses to bow to fear." Lysera's eyes narrowed. "You are dangerous," she said softly, almost admiringly. "Not in body, but in mind. Humans are fragile. You are not." Cale didn't answer. He could feel the air around him change. Magic, raw and ancient. Twisted in reaction, not against him, but because his presence challenged her. Respect had done what no weapon could. It had shaken the demon goddess. "Your second wish," Lysera said finally, her voice steadier but still dangerous. Choose wisely, human. One misstep, and it will be your end. Kale's mind raced. The first wish had already changed everything. He had not asked for power, only acknowledgement, yet the entire palace seemed to tilt under the weight of what had happened. He understood now that the real battle had only just begun. Beyond the palace walls, shadows gathered. Rumors of a human who challenged a god spread quickly across the lands. Creatures from distant worlds sensed the change in power. Kale's heart remained steady, but his mind was alive with strategy. He was one human, but within him burned the spirit of a species that thrived on courage and resilience. The first wish had done more than shatter her composure. It had begun a chain of events that no being, not even a goddess, could fully control. Kale took a deep breath, feeling the tension of the universe pressing down on him, yet somehow supporting him. Lysera's gaze held him, a mix of anger, fascination, and something he could not name. The demon goddess had been confident for centuries, but a human had made her pause. The impossible was no longer impossible. And Kale knew that the next wish would change everything even further. The world outside waited, uncertain. The palace trembled with anticipation. And Kale stood ready, knowing that a single human could make the cosmos notice, and perhaps even fear, the strength of the human spirit. The hall still vibrated from the energy of Kale's first wish. Lysera, the demon goddess, had never experienced anything like it. Her guards whispered among themselves, unsure whether to step forward or retreat. The air was thick with power, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Kale could feel it too, the subtle shift in reality, the awareness that the impossible had begun to bend to his presence. "You have surprised me, human," Lysera said, her voice quieter now, almost cautious. "Few dare to challenge me with words alone, and fewer survive to see the results." Kale did not reply. He studied her carefully. He knew that respect alone would not win him the war ahead. He had to think, plan, and act. The second wish would be far more dangerous than the first. It had to be clever, not reckless. And he had already seen that Lysera's magic, while powerful, had limits. He took a step forward. "My second wish," he began, "is that you show mercy to those who cannot defend themselves." Lysera's eyes flared, a storm of violet light exploding around her. The walls shook, and shadows danced like living creatures across the crystal floor. "Mercy?" she repeated, disbelief and fury mixing in her tone. "Do you think a goddess bends to human morality? Do you think I will obey?" Kale's voice remained steady. "I do not ask you to obey blindly. I ask you to understand that strength is not only in power. Strength is in protection, in knowing the consequences of your actions." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the air changed. Lysera's aura shimmered, and the raw energy of her magic twisted as if reconsidering its path. Kale could see it, the tiniest flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. For centuries, she had been untouchable, yet here was a human, standing calmly in the eye of her storm, shaping the outcome without lifting a weapon. You are more cunning than I expected," she admitted, voice low. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as legends claim." Kale nodded slightly. "We are survivors. We find a way, even when the odds are impossible." Outside the palace, the effects of his wish began to show. The creatures loyal to Lysera, fierce and merciless, hesitated in their attacks. Villagers and travelers, previously terrified of her power, began to find courage. Kale could see it in their eyes. Hope sparked where there had been none. It was not complete victory, but it was a crack in the goddess's domination, enough for humanity to fight back. Lysera took a step closer. Magic crackled around her like lightning in a dark storm. "Do you not fear death?" she asked. "I have faced death countless times," Kale replied. "I do not fear it because I fight for more than myself. I fight for every human who has been told they are weak, small, or powerless." I fight because hope is stronger than fear." The demon goddess's expression hardened, and the palace shook with her power. Energy surged outward in waves, dark as night, attempting to crush Kale, but he moved with agility and calm, avoiding the deadly strikes. He was not fast because of skill alone, but because he understood her mind, her arrogance, her confidence, the patterns in her attacks. For a moment, Kale thought about giving in, about surrendering to her overwhelming strength. But he remembered the first wish, how he had seen the unthinkable, the moment a human could challenge a god. That thought strengthened him. He realized that the true power was not in the strikes he dodged or the spells he avoided. It was in the certainty that his courage could influence the impossible. Lysera's eyes narrowed. "You will not leave this hall alive if you continue," she said, her voice shaking with a mixture of rage and something Kale could not name: respect. Few humans have the audacity to make such demands. "And yet you do not falter." Kale inhaled deeply. He could feel the tension, the growing battle not just of magic and strength, but of mind and will. The second wish had done more than ask for mercy. It had challenged the very way Lysera ruled. Already, cracks appeared in her armor of confidence, and Kale knew the final wish could tip the balance entirely. The palace trembled again. Shadows moved outside, creatures of power sensing the shift in the balance. Villagers and travelers who had once fled in fear now gathered at safe distances, curious, brave, and ready to fight alongside a human who dared challenge a goddess. Kale's presence had given them courage they had never known. Lysera's hands glowed with a violet fire. "Your words, your courage." "It is dangerous," she said. "I have ruled for centuries. None have ever stood before me like this." Kale stepped forward, unwavering. "I stand not just for myself. I stand for humanity. And we are stronger than you believe. We survive, adapt, and rise when the odds are impossible." For the first time, Lysera paused, as if considering the consequences of every action she had ever taken. The hall was silent, except for the crackling of energy around her. Even her guards were frozen, sensing that something extraordinary had occurred. Kale's second wish had shaken more than her palace. It had shaken the goddess herself. "You are unlike any human I have ever known," Lysera said finally. "Perhaps your final wish will show me the limits of your audacity." Kale's eyes narrowed. The final wish would need to be perfect. The first had shattered her composure. The second had challenged her morality and her view of power. The last would determine the outcome of this war. The balance between human courage and godlike strength dot beyond the palace walls. Kale could feel it, the universe watching, waiting. Shadows, magic, and creatures of unknown powers sensed the shift. This battle was no longer only personal. It had become a war of ideas, of spirit, of courage against tyranny. And Kale knew that one human, armed with the will to survive and the courage to challenge, could begin to change everything. The air in Lysera's palace was thick with tension. The first two wishes had already shaken the goddess beyond belief. Kale stood in the center of the hall, calm and focused. He could feel the immense power around him, swirling like a storm. Every instinct screamed danger, but he also sensed that the moment of destiny had arrived. The final wish would decide everything, not just for him, but for every human across the realms. Lysera's violet eyes burned with intensity. Her composure had been fractured before, but now she radiated a mix of anger, curiosity, and fear. "You have tested me," she said, her voice low, dangerous, almost reverent. "Your first wish broke my pride. Your second challenged my judgment. What is this final wish, human? Dare you step even closer to the edge of impossibility?" Kale's gaze did not waver. He knew the third wish had to be simple, yet undeniable. It had to demonstrate the true strength of humanity, the ability to survive, protect, and inspire. He took a deep breath. "I wish," he said slowly. For humans to be recognized across all realms as equals to any god or creature. Not because we have power, but because we have courage, will, and spirit. The hall went silent. Magic twisted violently, then surged outward like a tidal wave. Lysera staggered, trying to control it, but this time the energy resisted her command. The walls of the palace glowed and cracked as if the very universe was responding to the wish. You dare, she whispered, her voice shaking. You wish to change the natural order? You wish to elevate humans above fear itself? Kale nodded. We are not asking for dominance. We are asking for respect. A chance to prove our worth as beings capable of courage, love, and strength beyond measure. The energy around Lysera spiraled, forming glowing shapes that danced in the air. Slowly, her anger began to waver. Kale could see it, the realization that humans were not fragile, not weak, not unworthy. His words, his courage, and the simple essence of his wish had broken through centuries of arrogance. The palace trembled violently. Guards and creatures outside hesitated, sensing the shift. Even distant realms felt the change. The air seemed lighter, hope spreading like wildfire. Humans in towns, villages, and ships across galaxies could feel it. A newfound sense of value and purpose. Lysera fell to one knee. It was a sight no being had seen in centuries. The goddess, untouchable, feared and revered, had been humbled by a single human. Impossible, she muttered, her voice almost lost in the crackling energy. How could one mortal do what no god dared? Kale stepped forward, calm but commanding. It is not impossible. Not for humans. Not when courage drives the impossible. Her magic subsided slowly, the storm of violet energy dissipating into gentle light. She rose to her full height, but there was a new weight in her presence. Gone was the arrogance that had ruled centuries. In its place was acknowledgement, respect, and perhaps even admiration. You have changed me, Lysera said quietly. Not because of power, but because of spirit. You are remarkable. Kale nodded. Respect is earned, as I said. I did not wish to destroy or rule, only to show that humans are more than they appear. That courage, ingenuity, and willpower can stand against even the greatest odds. The palace doors opened automatically, as if inviting the outside world to witness what had happened. The creatures loyal to Lysera, once fierce and merciless, bowed in recognition of the human who had defied a goddess. Villagers, travelers, and allies of humanity could feel it, their spirits lifted, their fear replaced by hope. Lysera's gaze softened. Your first wish shattered my composure. Your second wish forced me to consider morality. And your third has changed the way I see the universe itself. Perhaps humans are not fragile after all. Kale allowed himself a small smile. It was the first time in centuries that a being of immense power had acknowledged humanity's strength. We are not perfect, he said. But we survive. We adapt, and we inspire. That is our greatest power. Outside, the sky shone brighter. The twin suns reflected on the mountains, and a calm energy spread across the land. Rumors of a human who stood against a goddess traveled faster than lightning, reaching every corner of the realms. Humans were no longer just survivors. They had become a symbol of courage, hope, and change. Lysera stepped aside, her aura of fearsome dominance replaced by something gentler, wiser. You have proven that one human can alter the course of history, she said. Let this be remembered. Kale nodded. It will be remembered. Not just by you, but by every being who witnesses what courage can achieve. For the first time, the palace felt alive with a different energy. Not one of fear or domination, but of possibility. Kale had faced a goddess, defied expectations, and changed perceptions, not through destruction, but through courage, will, and a simple understanding of humanity's strength. The first wish had shattered her composure. The second had challenged her morality. The third had elevated humans across the cosmos. And through it all, Kale had remained calm, confident, and unwavering, a human who dared to stand against what everyone believed impossible. Lysera's voice, softer now, carried a note of acknowledgement. You are no ordinary human. Perhaps in time, humans and gods can coexist as equals. Kale turned to leave, his mission complete. Outside, the creatures and humans alike looked upon him with awe. He had done what no one thought possible. The impossible had been made real, and the human spirit had proven it could rival even the greatest of powers. As the sun set over Varian, Kale walked away from the palace, knowing that the world had changed. A single human had stood against a goddess and won respect, not by force, but by courage. And in that victory, humanity found its place among the stars.